Hey, everybody, this is Jimmy. Welcome back to another episode of the Meet the Candidates series for Cambridge School Committee and Cambridge City Council. My next guest is Elizabeth Hudson. She is a current incumbent on the Cambridge School Committee. She's running for re-election. She did our interview 2 years ago. She's crediting us with her election. I'm honored. I'm thank you for that. And I just want to welcome to the show again, Elizabeth. How are
Oh,
you?
hello again, and thank you as always for doing this. We really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. So, Elizabeth, you served one term on the Cambridge School Committee. How did it go?
Yeah, so maybe actually I could take a step back and tell people who haven't met me a little bit about myself, and I can cover me in 30 seconds. So I live on Harvard Street with my husband and my three sons. I'm a neuroscientist by training, and I moved to Boston originally to work at an industrial robotics company, and then became the CTO at a venture capital firm working in biotech. And now I'm working on some new things that I'm really excited about. I'm also an officer in the Navy Reserves, and I served as the vice chair of the advisory board for the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory, also known as the Harvard Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics here on Garden Street. And as you mentioned, for the past 2 years, I've also been on the Cambridge School Committee, which has been really exciting. I feel really strongly about public education. I'm a public school graduate. And if you care about the state of the world, like this is the obvious place to start. It is the public, public education and school policy is the center of really all public policy. And our job is to arm kids with the skills that they need to compete in a modern economy. And I'm running again because we are not yet doing that.
Wow, Elizabeth, that is an impressive resume, I have to say. And I know you're bringing a lot to the Cambridge School Committee. So, having served one term, what do you think we're doing well, and what do you think needs improvement that you'd like to work on if you were elected again?
Yeah. So just kind of baseline, I get asked a lot, kind of what's the state of the world today? And I'd say that we do not provide a great education, especially for all of the latitude and all of the resources that Cambridge affords us. Roughly half of our kids are working at or above grade level, which means half are below. We just got our state standardized test scores for last year a few days ago. And that's embarrassing, but it's actually worse than that because we've got a lot of parents who are covering for us in the background, getting their kids private tutoring or after school support or helping them themselves. If you look at the low income students, for example, who are often wholly dependent on us, the 7 hours a day we have your kids for 183 days a year, which is like 1,300 hours per year. If you look at those students' achievement, the picture looks a lot worse. Roughly a quarter of those students are working at or above grade level, which means 3/4 are working below. And we have pockets of even worse performance. We have a single middle school, for example, where only 6% of our low-income students are working at or above grade level, which means 94% are working below. And these aren't all students who arrived 6 months ago, right? And we've just inherited their past. And with all of the stressors that come along with that, many of these kids have been with us since kindergarten. So we can't shirk responsibility here. This is a reflection of our current performance. One of the, kind of the next obvious question that I would ask, that I get asked is, why is this the case? And I'd kind of break this down into two buckets, and then I'll tie this to what we're doing well, but this is kind of what we need to do better. First, we don't do common sense stuff, right? We don't consistently hire and then retain great leadership, and we don't swiftly remove those who meet the bar. We also don't do this for faculty. We have incredible faculty who work really hard every day for a lot less money than they should be paid, but we also have some people who don't meet the bar, and we're afraid of saying that, and we're afraid of removing them. We don't get kids to school on time, right? You can't learn if you're stuck on a bus. We let classrooms descend into chaos with kids throwing laptops, standing on desks, screaming. And this is chaos in which it's hard to teach and basically impossible to learn. And we consistently promote students who haven't mastered all of the material for their current grade along to the next highest grade. And then we act surprised, right? We just kick the can down the road, right? We make it a problem for next year, and then it becomes an even bigger problem for next year. And then we act surprised when there are vast differences in ability that persist into middle school and high school. We have classrooms today in middle schools, for example, where one teacher has a grade level span of like 5 grades of ability, right? 7 levels of ability. We've made the job for our faculty. Our faculty are incredibly talented and they work really hard, and we've made the job basically impossible for them. And then we do a lot of silly stuff on top of this. We try to paper over these vast differences in ability with a bunch of trendy, progressive but not at all supported by good research and solid data education policies. And we call it closing the achievement gap. For example, I know we talked about a couple of years ago, the removal of advanced coursework, and I'll come back to this, but this isn't the only thing we do. So we eliminated in the past few years deadlines for homework and attendance requirements at the high school. This was a policy called Grading for Equity, which is now partially reversed, but entirely a bad idea. As we mentioned and we talked about last time, we're on a 20-year journey of removing advanced academic tracks in middle school and high school. Put another way, we hold kids back who are ready for more in order to cover up the gaps that are inadequate instruction allowed to persist. We went into debt over the past 15 years to create middle schools because somebody at some point told us that this was the thing to do in education circles, and the city is still paying for that. And we have faculty who spend more time talking about or telling their students that the world is unfair and that privilege dominates than they do actually teaching subjects like math, which is what they are paid to do for those 1,300 hours a year. Those are all the reasons why we have problems today, but I do want to touch on one reason why not. And I want to say it's not a funding issue, right? It's not a funding issue. We talk a lot about resources. Cambridge has enormous amounts. We have doubled our staff in the last 20 years in the school district. We went from about 950 to this past year, 1,747 staff members at a cost of an extra inflation-adjusted $100 million a year. We spend an extra $100 million every single year to operate a school district in which, with no change in the number of students, with basically nothing to show for it in terms of additional academic achievement. And nothing to show for it in terms of that achievement gap, whether that achievement gap be by race, by income, any demographic factor that you want to slice it by. None of this has really substantially improved, which is what you'd expect, again, for a doubling of a staff, an extra $100 million a year to operate it. And this doesn't count the $500 million the city has spent on new school buildings. And for avoidance of doubt, right, all of that extra money, that's almost exclusively spent on people. We spend very little on things like software and consultants and curricula. 90% of our money is benefits and payroll. These are the things that you would assume would really solve the problem, and they haven't. We've gone from a student to staff ratio of 8-to-1 to 4-to-1, which is the best in the nation, and teachers still tell you that they're swamped, and student achievement is any better, and nobody can tell you why. You asked, kind of what do we want to do next? And I'd say that this is we want to get back to basics. This is an elbow grease story. It's not a new policy story. It's an elbow grease story, right? We want to demand better results. Right? Stop citing terrible education research. I realize I'm going on, and you're trying to ask
No.
No,
That's really important what you're saying. And so forget about what they're doing well. Tell me, if you were superintendent, or if you were president, or if you were
that's not me, right?
If you were superintendent or governor or president or whatever, what would you do?
Yeah.
Given your experience seeing this, what do you think the solutions are?
Yeah. I think we first and foremost, I want everybody to know that it's okay to demand better results. Everybody knows we're not doing a great job, and everybody's afraid to say it because it's a difficult job. But the difficult jobs are the ones where the bar needs to be higher and we need to be great, right? We need to stop citing bullshit education research. I'm not sure if I can say that. You can bleep it out if you need to.
You can. We are very open-minded here.
Great. Fantastic. Most education research is methodologically trash, right? Just because you can find a paper published somewhere that tells you something is a good idea, that doesn't mean that it's actually a good idea. Look at those policies that work and do that, right? For kids who are behind, get them the intensive support and tutoring that they need, and then hold the line. If they can't read by third grade, right? And reading by third grade is like a key inflection point. That's when people say kids go from learning to read to reading to learn, right? If they can't read by third grade, God damn it, don't promote them to fourth grade, right? Make sure that they get what they need. And when they have that ability, then promote them to fourth grade, where they start to learn the skills that builds on those foundational abilities, right? Do your job, get the kid to the grade level, and then promote him. And for the kids that are ahead, put them in the class that matches their current ability. If they're in fifth grade and they want to take algebra, put them in algebra. Find a way. We're not looking for dark matter. We have all the money and all the policy latitude in the world. Find a way to get them into that class. If they want to take geometry, find a way to get them into that class. If they are 3 grade levels ahead in English, great. If they want to start taking interesting science class is spectacular, because those are the skills that they are going to need, again, to get a job after they graduate or after their, post-secondary education, which is what matters to parents, right? Those are the things that we need to do. And not only are there good data out there, there are states that are doing this. For example, Mississippi, which is not, the state that most people think of when they think of fancy education research. Mississippi is outstripping the rest of the nation in literacy skills. It's because they're doing this basic stuff, right? And we don't, we don't look at examples like that because it doesn't sound nice and progressive. It doesn't make the adults feel great, but it's what's best for kids, and it's the basic stuff that we need to do. Yeah.
So let me just ask you. So when you talk about the basic stuff, for example, I can remember I went to Cambridge Public Schools as a kid back in the day. People got kept back. They got back a grade. Do they do that now? If
No,
we
we don't do that. Even if you
one.
go and you ask if you want your kid to be held back, right? You ask because your kid isn't yet reading at grade level or isn't yet performing at grade level in math, right? Not something superficial, like I'd like him to be a little bit bigger so he can compete on the football team, right? I get not according to that. But if you go and ask, you get incredible pushback. It is basically something we don't do. We move you along no matter what. So if you are reading at a second grade level, but you are, 9 or 10, we say we're going to put you with the kids who are at the same age as you, not the same ability level as you. And the farther you go, right, the harder it gets, right? Because we don't do this in elementary school, right? When you talk about doing this in middle school and high school, now there's a social stigma, and nobody wants to get into that. But there's a real conversation to be had, especially at the younger grades where kids are establishing those foundational skills, and we don't have it.
Okay, so we only have a couple more minutes.
Hey,
That
I'm
was-
taking a time.
so let me ask you, with the new new superintendent coming in, and the new crop of school committee members yet to be determined, are you feeling that there'll be other people that would share your different approach, or more, hands-on approach to closing the achievement gap, et cetera, et cetera? Are you optimistic about that, or do you think you can work with folks to persuade them to your point of view? What are your feelings about that?
Yeah, we're gonna find out. So one of the things that we ran on, our two main planks last cycle were to bring back algebra to the upper school curriculum and to fire the superintendent. We've done both of those, and we've replaced the superintendent with a spectacular interim superintendent who has started to make the hard decisions that need to be made. Right? We had an elementary school that was chosen last year by parents get to choose what school they want to send their kids to. We had an elementary school that for the past 15 years has been lagging, and for scale last year there were 0 parents who ranked it as their first choice. And the committee, and I give them great credit for this, led by the interim superintendent, made the difficult decision to close that school, which everybody's known we need to do for a decade and nobody's done. Yeah. All that just to say, I'm thrilled that we've been able to bring back some of the coursework and replace the superintendent with a spectacular interim. In a few days, we will vote on a new permanent superintendent. And I'm looking forward to, and I'm excited and I'm hopeful that the committee will make a great decision there. And then in terms of moving forward,
Are you advocating for the interim superintendent to be?
I don't presume what the outcome of that vote will be. There's no smoky back room here where everybody knows what every other committee member is thinking. But I think we've got some great options on the table, and that makes me feel a lot better than I felt last cycle, where we had a permanent superintendent in the seat who was absolutely not the right job. So we're moving in the right, or was not the right choice. So we're definitely moving in the right direction. In terms of working with people, I have no idea who's going to end up on the committee next term. But your job is to work with whomever the community hands you as a colleague, right? It drives me nuts when people say, I introduced this policy motion, but it failed, right? Nobody gives a shit about your policy motion that failed, right? It doesn't matter. In order to make a difference, at the end of the day, the only thing people care is, what did you deliver to me? How did you improve or change my life? Only a successful motion does that. Only a successfully advanced policy does that. And so you have to, for better or for worse, whomever whomever the community hands you as a colleague, you have to find a way to work for them. Like that's your job.
Alrighty. Great. How can people learn more about you, Elizabeth? How can they volunteer for your campaign? How can they make a large donation to your campaign? How can they support you for Cambridge School Committee?
Absolutely. The best way to support me is to vote, right? Vote in general. Not everybody votes for the school committee. A lot of people vote for city council who don't vote for school committee. But the school district is the single biggest line item in the city's budget. So even if you only care about city council, if you want more money for those things, right, you have to pay attention to schools. So first thing is vote. In terms of your money and your time, use your money to support your kids and use your time to get them the help they need out of school, because you're going to need it until we address some of these things. Don't worry about those things. Just vote and tell your neighbors to vote, and take the time to really look into what everybody is saying, what everybody's planning, and really think about the feasibility of what everybody is saying and planning, because that's the key, right? You can sit here and promise people, 100 things that aren't actually possible to get done, either because money, or time or resources or some other, feasibility factor. You really need to think about what's the right thing to do and who has an actual plan to carry that out that is executable.
Great. What's your website?
CambridgeSchoolCommittee.com.
CambridgeSchoolCommittee.com. Elizabeth Hudson, thank you so much for joining us today. Good luck on November 4th, and I'll see you on the campaign trail.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.